What's going on, everybody? It's EricRayweather back here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over the 5 best things and the 5 worst things about Madden 20 about 2 months after its release. So I did this video the first week the game came out. I do it every year. I talk about the things that I think are the best about the new game and the things that I think are the worst about the new game. But as we know, especially with these games nowadays, they change a lot. We get multiple updates, things get added, things get fixed, things get broken, and as more people spend time with the game, we see things shift, we see more bugs arise, we see different play styles arise, and it can kind of change how the game is as a whole. So I wanted to do an updated video to talk about what I feel is the best and the worst about the game in its current state, especially because there are still many people, as I see every day in my comments, that are waiting to get the game. They don't buy it when it comes out. They wait till Black Friday, or they wait for it to go, $20, $30 off, or whatever the case. So there's still people out there that may be wondering what the game is like in its current state, as the first week of the game is not how the game is right now. So let's get into that. Number 1 on the list is something new to the game that I want to talk about that was not in the game when it released, and that is the new Superstar KO mode. I think this is one of the best things about Madden 20 as of right now. Anytime you give people a new way to interact with your game, a new game mode to play, I think that's a good thing. And this mode, for what it is, I think is great for Madden. It's not your typical game of Madden. It's not your typical game of football. It's meant to be an over-the-top arcade experience that's a kind of a quick game, like a 5 to 10 minute game, and you can kind of just play them repeatedly online against other players. But what's really interesting about the mode for me is I like that there are themed teams to this, and their playbooks are specific to the theme of the team. So you have a run-heavy team, a pass-heavy team, you have a balanced team, you have a team that's got way more defensive plays than offensive plays, you've got teams that have way more blitz plays and, big passing plays, but they don't have a lot of running plays. And I just like that because it creates a strategy within the game. You go into this game, each person gets a drive. If you tie, you go overtime, tug-of-war rules. And it's just a fun way to interact with the game. If you want to just get on and not take it too serious, if you want to just mess around for an hour, play quick games, it's over-the-top arcade style where the abilities really shine. But I really like how the playbooks are limited because it creates a different strategy. You can't really just spam the same play over and over because you're not going to always have the best plays in your playbook. You might only have 8 offensive plays, and you got to try to figure out, which one of these plays is going to help you get down the field the best. And you're very limited, and it just kind of makes it interesting seeing as, who picks what team and things like that. I just think it's a fun way to interact with the game. I'm always for more game modes. Some people would argue, why would they put this mode in over doing some other things, but like I said, anytime you add something new to the game, that's a win. Whether you particularly like it or not, giving people different options in the game is a big deal, and I think this is one of the best new things about Madden 20. Number 2 best thing on the list kind of goes along with this, and that is the house rules, which is found in Ultimate Team. Now, house rules is basically new mini games that come out every week. It's like for 48 hours you could play a different mini game, and they had this in the game last year. It was patched in, but this year they've kind of taken it a step further. They're adding new types of these house rules mini games, and they're just, again, fun ways to play the game. It's a different take on football. If you play franchise mode or you just play regular online head-to-head, you can play that regular, sim style of football, even though most people don't play Madden in a simulation type of way. That's what it's supposed to replicate. But things like house rules, it changes things. So you could have a house rules event where you're just playing college overtime, which is tons of fun. Really quick mini game. They have the tug-of-war rules, basically where each team gets 10 plays, and whoever gets the most yards after those 10 plays wins, or if you score a touchdown, you automatically win. They have house rules where you only get 2 downs to convert, to get a first down, but you only have to go 5 yards. So you start at 1st and 5, but on 2nd down, it's essentially like 4th down. If you don't get that 1st down, they get the ball back. They have house rules where you have to use stock plays. You can't make any adjustments. You can't audible and things like that. There's really different ways to play the game, and I think that is great for the game. Again, giving people new ways to interact with the game, different challenges to complete. That's what makes games fun, because we can sit here and play football all day. We can play a franchise. We can play online head-to-head, and we can play regular football games all day. Sometimes you just want a different experience. You want to interact with it. That's why games like NFL Street, NFL Tour were so much fun, because it's just a different take on football. Sometimes you want to jump in and just play with different rules, and I think that's great. Number 3 best thing about Madden 20 to me might be controversial, but I still believe the abilities are a great thing for the game. Some of them definitely are overpowered. I think we knew that coming in, just like, we've seen in 2K with badges. Certain badges are overpowered. Same thing in Madden. Some of these abilities are a little bit more overpowered than others, but it keeps the game from being super vanilla, in my opinion. Yes, some of the abilities can bail bad players out at times, some of the running abilities for sure, the escape artist ability for QBs, but overall, I'd rather the special players feel special than to just feel almost like everybody else, because that's what Madden has been for so many years now. Outside of the speed rating, more so than anything else, players just felt the same. You were just going for the guys who were the fastest, but now, guys that have escape artists are more feared as a running QB, but the QBs that can do more hot routes have to be feared too, because they have more diversity in what they can do with their plays. The running backs that have abilities are so much more feared than just a regular running back. Before, all you really cared about for a running back most years was speed. Maybe, depending on which year it was, you want your spin move to be high, or you want your trucking to be high, but outside of that, you're just trying to get the fastest guy. Now, you don't have to have the fastest running back to have a great running back, because he might have the arm bar, he might be able to jukebox, or he might, be able to, he might have the trucking ability where he's going to break more tackles, and he can be a slower guy, but because he has an ability, if he gets that one-on-one, he's got a better chance of breaking that tackle, and it just makes guys like, Zeke feel more special than he has in other games. Same thing on defense. The pass rushers, the really good pass rushers feel special. The big hitters feel more special. Now, yes, I wish ratings mattered a little bit more. I do think there's some ratings this year that still matter. Obviously, speed does. I think route running matters a lot. I do think man and zone matter, right? But the abilities definitely are the game. The abilities matter way more than the ratings, so I think maybe, if anything, they need to find a little bit more of a balance with it. But while the abilities definitely have, a lot of people don't like them, but a lot of people do, I just fall on the side that I like them. I think making special players feel special outside of just who's the fastest, I think is a good thing. It makes the game more fun to me. The fourth best thing about Madden 20, in my opinion, is just head-to-head play in general. And what I mean by this is not necessarily the meta and how people play head-to-head, because it depends. If you're playing people that just want to run stretch and dive all game, yes, it could be a boring experience, but I mean head-to-head play in terms of all of the modes you can play head-to-head, and they all matter, because if you think about the last 5 or so years of Madden, pretty much Ultimate Team is all that has really mattered head-to-head. Regular online head-to-head kind of got bland. Draft champions or MUT draft, whatever you want to call it, got really bland. It didn't have the luster that it did in its first year. Salary cap, outside of just playing competitively, no one really played it, right? But this year, every head-to-head mode has its place, and I think that's a big deal, because it really felt like you were just forced to play MUT, or you had to have a boring time in regs if you wanted to play head-to-head, and not everybody wants to play MUT. MUT has its place. It's that ultimate fantasy mode. You can have the best team in the world. You can get everybody you want on your team. You can have, you can max out your abilities. It's the fun over the top, like, you have everything you want, right? But now regs is fun because of the abilities, because it makes it to where, okay, you're not just using the team that has the fastest players, right? You're not just using the Chiefs every game. Now, the Chiefs are good, but you might want to use the Cowboys because Zeke's got good abilities. DeMarcus Lawrence has good abilities. You might want to use the Browns because Myles Garrett has good abilities. Nick Chubb has good abilities. Odell Beckham has good abilities. There's different teams. The Patriots are good because Tom Brady is so good in the game, although his pass leading is kind of broken right now. But outside of that, like, if they get that part fixed, Tom Brady has so many abilities that it makes you want to use the Patriots. Like, the abilities have made regular teams fun because there's more diversity in the teams you can actually pick, and having those abilities, at least, it makes the game mode not as vanilla. Draft champions / MUT draft is fun because if you don't want to deal with abilities, you could just go play that mode. Like, if you want to play a game, if you want to play more of, like, I guess, the older style of Madden where there are no abilities, you go play draft champions or MUT draft. You draft your team, both teams are equal, and you don't have to worry about abilities taking over the game. You're just playing based on ratings, and you have, a drafted team that's equal on both sides. If you want to play competitively, salary cap's the best place to play competitively because both teams have to fit under a salary cap. You still could have abilities, but those abilities come with a hefty cap cost, meaning if you put an ability or two on your team, that means a couple of your positions are going to be weaker. So you have balanced teams, but you also don't have abilities everywhere that can just completely take over. You have to be very, very, specific with where you want certain things, and you have to account for those, and you're going to lose, an advantage in another area by putting that ability on one of your players. So it's a very good way to play competitively and kind of really see who's the best. And then you have, like I said, the house rules mini games, the KO mode if you want to play over-the-top arcade. The ways to interact head-to-head in this game are the best that they've ever been, in my opinion, in terms of every mode has its place now. There's a reason to play and dabble in every mode, and I think that's a good thing. And the fifth best thing about Madden 20 to me are just playbooks and diversity. Now, yes, again, when you're playing like top players and you're playing people that just want to win, they're playing weekend league or they're competing, you're going to see a lot of the same metas in terms of people running dive and stretch, people staying under center. But this year still, even that set aside, this year has been the most diverse in terms of formations that you can win with and that work very well. The last few years, it's mainly been gun bunch and gun trips tight end, and that's just the truth. The far majority of people, if you wanted to have a good shot at winning the majority of your games, those were the two schemes you ran: gun bunch or gun trips tight end, because they were the best in the game. They gave you the best chance to move the ball, and they gave you the most firepower. This year, you can run a ton of different things, and even though the community is always going to gravitate towards the thing that is the absolute best, which is the run game right now, the fact that you have options is great. You can still run gun bunch as an offense and be good. You can still run trips tight end and be good. You can run gun tight. You can run gun split close and be very good. Gun split close is always good, but it still had limiting factors. This year, gun split close as just an offense is very good. You can run I form for the first time in forever, and yes, I know the run game can get boring for a lot of people, but the fact that you can run an under center game now is still good in my opinion, because it really was not much of an option in the past years. You can run out of single back now. You can even run out of gun heavy panther and gun empty bunch and use the QB draws and the QB blast run scheme and build behind, you know, your scheme behind a fast quarterback. Like, there's just so many options this year that actually work and you can actually be competitive in using, and that has just not been the case for many years now. I think that's a good thing. Now let's talk about the worst thing. So number one has to be the bugs, and this is something we talked about a lot before the year began, because EA was saying, you know, this is going to be one of the most bug-free games we've seen in a while, and we know all games are going to have bugs. And when they said the game was going to be more bug-free, you know, in my opinion, that didn't mean we would see no bugs. I mean, I think anybody that knows better knows that, but I wouldn't classify Madden 20 as a more bug-free game. We have actually seen a lot of bugs, and some really big game-breaking ones. You know, the kick meter disappearing in the fourth quarter has been a problem. The bug where you couldn't tackle or sack the QB, I think they've found all of those and fixed those, but that was an issue for a month and a half of the game. Those are game-breaking things. And then, of course, there's just like the typical little glitchy things, you know, the warping that you always see in the game. I don't expect that to go away, but I would say, you know, there's a pretty big laundry list of bugs that the game had this year, and even though I do still feel like the gameplay as a whole is better, just in terms of player movement, you know, they made zone better, man is the best that it's been in years, you know, the game's a lot smoother. Like, all those things are definite. Those are better. The gameplay is better because of those, but the bugs themselves, there's just been still too many bugs in the game this year, and when they were really selling that there would be, you know, way less bugs, it just doesn't honestly feel that way. It seems like they've tackled a good bit of them, but just the fact that that many has been in the game, and there still are quite a few that haven't been addressed that are big, you know, that's something that, you know, is definitely one of the worst parts about Madden 20 for sure. Number two worst things is definitely pursuit angles, and this is why the run game is so overpowered in my opinion. Yes, there is run defense. If you're good, you can usually contain the run if you're not playing like a super great competitor. But the pursuit angles are just really, really bad in this game. I think that's one of the worst things about the gameplay this year. If I could name one thing, it's probably pursuit angles, because the defense overall is good. Zone and man is pretty good at this point. You know, drop picks are still an issue. Blocking still has its issues, but pursuit angles far and away is why the run game is so good, because, you know, you could just watch back replays on every big run play in this game, and you're pretty much bound to see at least one defender just make a dumb pursuit. It makes no sense. They'll literally almost go the other way for a brief second and then go back to the correct pursuit angle, but that one little instance is what broke the run free, and it just happens a lot in this game. And that's, if I could see one thing that they need to like really work on in terms of gameplay in one of the upcoming updates, it would definitely be pursuit angles of defenders. Number three worst thing about the game is face of the franchise. And it's just because there's really no replayability to it. I'm glad that they put something like that back in the game. I really hope that they, you know, let this thing reach its potential in the next couple years. But in its first year, the replayability just isn't there. The story is really short, kind of like NBA 2K's My Career. You know, the little prelude type story before you really get fully into your career mode. Theirs is short too, but I feel like theirs is a little bit more interesting, a little bit, you know, more well put together. But it's the thing is, once you actually get to the league in My Career, there's just so many more options and things to do, whereas in Madden, there's really not. And the prelude stuff just didn't last long enough, and it just didn't offer enough, and there's really just no reason to replay it. You might play through the beginning part once or twice, and then it's just like, it just feels like the same old thing. So I'm saying it's one of the worst things because I think we all expected at least a little bit more than we got out of it. And I just hope they can make that better in the years to come, but it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And then that brings us into number four worst things, and that's franchise mode. It's still just like the beginning of the year, leaves a lot to be desired. They haven't updated it much. There's still bugs with that as well, like the development traits not working properly. I still don't think they put in the 5th year options yet. I know that's coming, which is cool, but it's still not there yet. So it's like, at this state of the game, franchise mode still is pretty much like it was at the beginning of the year. Still has bugs that haven't been fixed, and still hasn't added a lot to it yet. The scenario engine, which is one of the biggest things for that mode this year, still doesn't feel like that was updated a whole bunch, and that leaves a lot to be desired as well. So some cool things that were added, but they're either not working properly or haven't been updated, at least not yet at maybe the rate we thought they would be. So it's just, you know, again, like, replayability for franchise mode is definitely, I could see the pain points for that for a lot of those franchise fans. And the 5th worst thing is just the attention to detail, which has been a problem for EA for a while. The attention to detail, you know, I think that's the one main reason why 2K is held in such high regard when you look back at the old NFL games and even their current NBA games. Like, if you're a 2K player, and I play 2K, that's like my second most played game behind Madden, and anybody that plays it will tell you, like, in terms of gameplay, bugs, just little things that just seem to, like, be mind-boggling issues. Like, 2K is just as bad as Madden in that regard. They have so many bugs, they have so many gameplay issues, they patch the game, they break things, they constantly change things. It's the same thing as Madden. Go through literally the same thing, but in terms of their attention to detail, and especially with their offline modes, that's really where they shine. And they shined with the old NFL games, and they still shine in that way. Like with Madden, there's just so many little things you see, and I think it's more for the franchise crowd. If you're playing head to head, these things don't stick out as much, but the details, especially from a franchise mode perspective, there's just so many little things they miss, and you're like, man, like, how did they miss that? And maybe you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and you're like, oh, you know, that's like an eyesore, but whatever, not the biggest deal. But once you start seeing 15, 20, and 25 of these things, it just starts to pile up, and you're like, man, how are they missing all of these little things? That it just seems so obvious that, like, how would you miss it? I mean, I don't know what exactly it is, but the attention to detail, I feel like, definitely is something they need to be better with, especially going into next gen, and I hope that they are, because that's just an area that they've just been behind for a while now. And I've seen efforts in some places where they're trying to get better with that, but they still have a ways to go, and you definitely can notice a lot of those little errors this year in the game, as many other community members have been pointing them out since the release of the game, you know. So those are the 5 best and worst things about Madden 20 and its current state, in my opinion. Let me know below how you feel about the game right now, and as always, I will see you guys next time.